shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Edventures in Tech podcast, talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
Back and better. This is episode 63, live for day 2 of Deeper Learning NY here at Kingston High School. I'm Andrew.
I'm Dan.
We got Art here, and we are ready for our next guest, who I've actually had the pleasure. Is that the good word, pleasure?
I think so.
I think it's pleasure.
There's some opinions in there.
I've been blessed for knowing our next guest for over 24 years now. That means we're getting old. Right, Michael?
Don't tell people that.
That's it. So we have Michael Sotero, who is the, correct me if I'm wrong, supervisor of teaching, learning, and student support at the Center for Professional Learning, Curriculum Support at Southern Westchester BOCES.
Yeah, that's a lot to say.
I'll say, how does that fit on a business card, Mike?
I think we have a rival of titles right here.
I'm excited. Finally, somebody that needs 2 business cards for their title, just like myself.
I think we do a QR code. You know, a lot of times I just say I work at
BOCES.
in education.
I work in education. That's it. That's
100%.
it. That's it. So we're going to have some fun, Mike, right? We're going to have a little fun before we get into talk about ed tech and everything and what's going on here at Deeper Learning and why. All right, so let's first start with most used app, non-email, during the school day.
That's got to be weather.
Weather.
Yeah.
Checking the weather.
Yeah, we're not weather nerds, but we have so many things going on, recreationally, kids sports, and we like to spend all our time outside, so that's got to be it.
All right. What's one ed tech trend or tool everyone loves, but you just don't?
That's tough. There's so much stuff out there. I'm a big advocate for AI, so that's not it. I think social media. I pulled all that stuff from my own personal use like 3 or 4 years ago and went like digital minimalism. And I understand the reach, but it doesn't balance out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's a lot I don't do tickety-tock.
Yeah. Right on, man.
That's just not it. I know. He's always like, check this out. Yeah. I don't even have a TikTok account.
Yeah, no Instagram, none of that. And back when I was teaching, I'm sure I would have grabbed TikTok and been like, this is what we're going to use, and you're going to be George Washington on TikTok.
Yeah, well, right.
Actually, I will say the George Washington AI stuff on TikTok is absolutely amazing.
Of course.
I've seen the image generation. It's pretty cool.
Some of the AI that they're doing with it's pretty awesome. But yeah, I get what you're saying with the social media though.
All right, so and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 2 truths and 1 lie,
okay.
right? So tell us 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself. We're going to try to guess the lie. We did okay yesterday.
Okay. Right now?
Yeah.
All right, so it's
See
2.
if you can fire him.
All right. I've owned 3 boats and sank 1. I can play the piano, and when our youngest is leaving for college, I will have been a dad with kids in the house for over 30 years.
All right. Art, you go first.
I'm gonna go with the boat.
Okay.
I'm hoping that's true because that sounds like an awesome story.
That's a story then, right?
I definitely believe he sunk a boat. So I'm going to go with play piano.
That's what I was going to go with. I was going to say the lie is the piano.
So you know my history, so I have no rhythm. So, certainly know my way around a boat and under the water to find the one you sunk. So that's us. That is a long story. Yeah, that's it, man.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, well, hey, listen, so we're super excited that you have joined us, today with things. So talk about your role right now in education, your positions. I mean, we've known each other for a while and all your career and the steps you've taken and leads you, and how technology plays a part in your current role in day-to-day.
Yeah, so entering sort of like this, if you look at our careers in 3 tiers, sort of the final tier, just starting it. We're not that old yet, but, the final 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Of,
This guy.
You look great, though. I hope I look like that. I'm your age. As we enter into this time period, I spent 10 years as a building leader, years doing district work, was a teacher before that. Now that I've transitioned and sort of taken a purposeful step into the BOCES life, to be more strategic and thoughtful and to work sort of without the distractions that you'll see in buildings, and to help not just the kids in front of me and in the hallway, but to help people build better schools for a region. So tech plays a huge role in that. In what I do now, I'm very much like a strategic consultant for supers and assistant supes and their cabinet. And so we'll partner with districts and we'll work on their board goals, their strategic planning, and then help them synthesize New York State and then national asks into what they do. And what folks come to us on is, hey, we wordsmith this, we put it out, the board approved it, here's our goals, here's this new state initiative. Help us turn it into real teaching on Tuesday in February in one of our schools.
Right.
And so tech is where that comes down to, because a lot of times we're the ones that help them form their communication patterns. We help them highlight different areas with the groups that need to have that tech support. And so whether it's talking with principals in a principal leadership group and saying this is how you can leverage AI to save your time, make your job a little simpler while keeping your own autonomy in it, or we're working with teachers to say this is how you can analyze data for kids, this is how you can run these different assessments. And then when we're working with upper cabinet, a lot of it is how to get how their stakeholders feel and how to synthesize that. So I think using a lot of engines that do that sort of work, which leans into the AI field, that's where we spend a lot of our time, where it's crunching numbers, it's turning qualitative data into quantitative data, and then it's just keeping people organized.
Yeah,
right,
you know,
for sure.
Like you talk to a school about their committees, and they're like, well, we have this committee, this committee, this committee, this committee, and then we have these 5 initiatives, but if you stop someone in the hall, no one knows that. So how can we leverage tech to not be the driver of our strategic decisions, but to future cast our strategic decisions, and then use tech to help streamline
efficiency at its finest.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, cool.
So one of the things, building upon what you were discussing, and then we'll also go back to the age thing. We've been in education, all of us here, for a number of years, and looking at the way you're utilizing tech and AI now. But just to take a step back and look at that view from your viewpoint, how is all this ed tech changing the way students learn and teachers teach?
So this is a huge pivot point right now in education. So last week, myself and a few others were at DayTag, which is a technical conference up in Saratoga for New York State. And AI was a big feature. And the question people kept saying is, how are we going to respond to AI? How are we going to respond to AI? Teachers think their kids are going to use it to cheat. How can we make sure that it's their own work? And they were coming up with all these problems. And although they were trying to get ahead of it and being proactive, they were still allowing AI to be the driver. Whereas what myself and some of the others who work together are trying to do is get people to use this idea of future casting or futuring, which is its own system and protocols, to really strategically plan out your next 3 to 5 years, keeping AI on the sideline for a moment. So like, what is your organization's goals? What are your wants? What are the needs of the people that you service? And once you build out what you want that to look like, now dream up what you want AI to do. And you might even be dreaming of things that AI can't do yet. Like on-demand qualitative, mood reading. Everyone talks about the mood meter, but like, can you take the pulse of kids immediately in your classroom and find like what's engaging and what's not? That's going to be the big next step. And so we're trying to shift people's minds of don't react to the tech that's coming out. Don't try to get ahead of it that way, because you're still letting the tech be the driver. You need to figure out strategically, where do you want to be as a human and in a human organization 5 years from now? And then how can you grab a hold of tech and control it and use that as a tool in getting you there? So it's positioning that viewpoint.
Do you see a lot of, you went to that conference, was it mostly admins?
So at that, it's a lot of data people who do like level 0 behind the scenes work, and then a lot of admin there.
So in that regard, I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is a significant divide that's clear of those who adopt AI use and those who don't. So like in your position, the data people, I know Dan and I and Art have done a lot of things with running data to help summarize through AI, just to, again, efficiency at its finest. What are you seeing from your role and positions of similar interest, with, AI, it's not going to do what I need. Like, that's the old school mentality. What do you think about that with people that are hesitant, so to speak, to utilize and harness the power of it?
I think you're going to have people who maintain this fear of that it's going to take away autonomy, whether it's the autonomy of the teacher, whether it's real student work. And then people are afraid of things that they don't know how to use.
Right.
So I think first is educating folks so that they can understand what's at their disposal. But again, it's going to point back to like, what are your human goals? Because there's a huge divide. You'll work with some districts who their super has come up through a tech field, and they're knowledgeable, they have a toolbox, and they can see where this will fit in their planning, where they want to go, how they can achieve their goals, and how they can even problem solve with it. And then you'll see folks who they've never done this work at all, and they kind of want to shift it to someone else. So it's how can you give folks a base level understanding so that everybody at least has step one of like what's out there, what it could be useful in general conceptual terms, and then go from there. But that's a huge lift that we have if we choose to collectively take that on in society.
I think we're, as educators, we are responsible for teaching this next generation, because when wherever they enter, the career field or whatever, I mean, look at the YouTube generation. People can fix stuff on YouTube or TikTok. I know, or they can fix it.
Listen, I am a YouTube repair engineer.
Exactly, right? And now AI is able to give you that in many different facets very quickly. And this next generation, when they go into the career field or wherever, they have to be able to use it. So we ethically have to responsibly teach these kids how to utilize AI.
I think that's where the professional learning is coming in.
Yeah.
Like what you'll see here at this conference, and how you'll start to see how we even assess teachers is the way that we used to be the gatekeepers of content, and like then parcel it out, and that's all gone. You know, and people have been slow to accept that, unfortunately. But that's the real. You know, you can find out any factual information you want in a second. So how can we pivot as educators to say, here's a real life problem that you're going to encounter in 5 to 10 years, student. How can you then solve this problem?
Right.
You know, and giving them that as the stimuli.
And it's not even understanding like a specific tool, because like, especially if you've been dragging your heels for a little bit with AI, there's so much out there. Like
it's
every time I
overwhelming.
go on, especially because I'm working on content filters and stuff for our district, there's another one, there's another one, there's another one.
They find
but
it.
It's teaching students how to responsibly engage whatever the tool is, particularly AI, like how to engage the AI tool to get correct information. You get what you're trying to develop. You know, again, our team here talks a lot about being content creators, and not consumers, and effectively harnessing AI to be content creators.
How do you teach them to use this tool, and not just take it for the ride that it is?
Right.
You know,
It's we always talk about using AI as your co-pilot.
A thought partner.
Thought partner, not being the full fault.
It's crazy to think like how much we're talking about AI and the use of AI and responsibly using AI, and so many of our teachers freaked out when we went remote learning. It was only 5 years ago, right? They were like, I can't do this virtual stuff. I can't do it. And now we're like, oh, well, you have AI to assist you. I mean, could you imagine like if we had AI then, people would be like, oh, yeah, this is a lot easier.
The good thing is virtual meetings, because now they're like, what do you mean we're meeting in person?
Yeah.
Aren't we doing this virtually?
A good thing that came out of the pandemic, absolutely.
Right. And let's think about it. Not for nothing, we're talking about 5 years since, going remote learning. ChatGPT is now 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't new. Like,
renditions.
We're into this. We're into this deep at this point.
it's so important for you to bring up, like, you can't really just master one app, because the moment you hit the ground, that something new is going to be there.
Right, it's old.
Yeah, so it's almost like, how do we build this problem-solving sort of habit in students that they can turn and be flexible and nimble enough to grab whatever the newest thing is out there, but as you said, use it as a co-pilot, use it as a reference.
But I think it comes down to something you were mentioning earlier. Teachers as being the purveyors of content is no longer there. In a way, it's hard to give up. That's the traditional role. But, just to throw out multiple perspectives on it, it could be quite freeing. Because, we go into, Brandon, you go into a K-12 school, like, you're there to educate students. You're not there to really pontificate on, the Treaty of Versailles and everything that you know about that. You want to go show off about your knowledge of history, go write a book, go lecture somewhere else. So we're really there to educate students, to find where they're at, where they need to be, and give them the necessary tools that we have to go there. So that freeing up of content allows for teachers to be educators and allows them those opportunities. So I'm wondering, with the emergence of AI and everything that's there, with the work that you're doing, because you keep saying, imagine yourself 5 years from now. So what is some of the responses? What are some of the things? Where do you see us in education 5 years from now? Because I think it's going to be different. It has to be.
Yeah, look what 5 years has done.
I hope it is. But
So if we think on a state, local level, there's all these shifts happening, with Portrait of a
Portrait,
Graduate,
right.
New York Inspires, and then there are also the way that students receive credit, and they can now earn credit through real life experiences and the changes that are going to happen to the regents and what our diploma looks like, and even the way that we evaluate teachers is changing with the STEPS program. So we have all these bureaucratic shifts that are going to hopefully are intended to move people in that direction. But conceptually, on a national level, right, or on a world level, where are we in 5 years is going to be fragmented, because you're going to have these people who you'll talk about early adopters of tech. And again, it's not about like grabbing that app, but it's now going to be early adopters of this new flexible mindset where you can be nimble and solve what's in front of you, be critical thinkers, and then use these tools to be that. And then you're going to have folks who are still letting go and sort of grieving that process of what once was teaching. And I think it's on us, as Andrew was saying earlier, to sort of get out that messaging that it's okay to make this pivot in your career. You're not going to lose tenure. You're not going to get a bad evaluation. Those are the fears that I think teachers have when we speak to them. And even when we speak to folks leading districts, it's, well, what does this mean for our scores? We had so many kids go to this Ivy League and that. What's this going to look like? And it's shifting that whole culture of thinking of like just going after that one score or controlling your content to, we need to make our students be free, critical thinkers who can solve problems, who can create their own pathways in life and advocate for their own wants, and then support the people around them in community. So in a way, as you're saying, it should be simpler. It's like, let's go back to like being kind and creating community and being critical thinkers about challenges that are in front of us and working together. And now we have so many more tools at our disposal. But how we get there is a long conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it's 5 years. It's gonna rapidly change. And maybe we'll be here again and we'll recap it in 5 years. We'll be like,
see that.
let's refresh this episode and go into a new one. So, well, Mike, we got it.
Thank you.
It's been long. It flies by. The time flies by. So we'll definitely have to have you on again. We appreciate your time today. And I'm sure we'll be seeing you at many conferences coming up soon.
Yeah, and thank you for all that you do spreading this work around your students.
We appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
We're here with Robert Mahoney, and he's here at Deep Learning New York to talk about school safety and all the connections that we have there. So he's offering a session called Red Flags to Real Change, Reimagining School Safety Through Early Prevention. So I'm really excited to hear what Robert has to say. If you wouldn't mind just starting a little bit with your background and introducing yourself to everyone.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on the pod here. So I am the founder of TVTP Solutions. That's an acronym that stands for Targeted Violence and Terrorism Prevention. I got my start. I have a master's degree in emergency and disaster management, and that kind of migrated into this world of targeted violence, and I started seeing that a lot of the security stuff that was going on in schools was much more in the realm of protection or preparedness, preparing to respond, rather than traditionally prevention type things. So started looking into more of those behavioral indicators and doing a lot of case studies and things like that of people who have actually committed sort of these atrocities in schools and things like that, and realized that there was a very common character arc that was going on, where a lot of warning signs were being shown, whether it was in the school or maybe even outside the school, where they were known to law enforcement or they were known to the mental health sector and things like that. But everybody was sort of waiting for a certain threshold to be crossed before they put all of their resources towards intervening. And so what I try to do is, through my awareness trainings and through a lot of technical trainings and technical consultations, is to really showcase those behavioral indicators and then try to set up within the school processes so that those one-off incidences don't sort of go unnoticed, that they become a part of a bigger picture. And so the school is more proactive and much more on the front foot of getting that individual the help that they need early on before anything happens. And so TVTP, we really truly believe that these events can actually be prevented rather than sort of interceded and responded to in the more traditional sense.
That's great. Can you talk a little bit more about that common character arc that displays that?
So mostly individuals will start with sort of like a grievance, and we call it either the pathway of violence or the pathway to radicalization. So you can, the important thing to remember is that you can be sort of radicalized, but you find people that don't believe that violence is sort of the answer to their radicalization or their grievance, right? Usually people will go from radicalization into sort of an even deeper hole, which then takes them to the pathway of violence. And there are certain steps along that pathway that pretty much everyone takes. The problem is that pathway can take months, can take years. And so when you look at the education field, a lot of the feedback that I get from teachers is, well, I got your training and it looked like this, but I also got another training in substance abuse and it looked like this, or I got another training in suicidal ideation and it sort of looked like this, and I didn't really know what bucket to put it in.
I was just thinking about that.
And so I decided to wait to see if more indicators presented themselves so I knew exactly what to do. And that's kind of the opposite of what we want. A lot of people that commit sort of targeted violence also have suicidal ideation. I think it's up around like 82% of individuals that do that have some type of suicidal ideation. A lot of the risk factors and a lot of behavioral indicators are similar. Early behavioral indicators are similar to substance abuse. So a lot of the training that I do, even though it's specifically towards targeted violence, is multidisciplinary, and it's just more of a prevention mindset to get into so that you're not waiting, because that individual might show you an indicator or might have an incident that you just take as a one-off, and then 3 years later another indicator comes. Well, they're not in your classroom anymore, right? Or they've moved on. And so it's very difficult for teachers and administrators and principals and the like to really get a full picture, because you're trying to create a puzzle without really knowing what the puzzle is supposed to look like. And so you just have all these pieces and you're trying to put them together in real time. And that can be really, really difficult. And it's only until after an incident happens and then you look back and you're like, oh, that seemingly innocuous incident, like, a divorce in the family or a death of a grandfather or, leaving the soccer team, not getting picked for the soccer team or something like that. One off, that's not something that's really like threatening, but in combination, it destroyed this person's world and they decided to sort of like go down this pathway.
I mean, as you were talking, and when you're talking about the teacher looking at the situation and deciding what bucket to put it in, that came out clearly to me. But that's leading me to another thing. In a school community, it's so large. There's so many different buckets, so many different individuals working in isolation with each other that, maybe this student is seeing, the mental health counselor, but that's not, shared with or aware to everyone else, and then there's lack of communication going on to see that bigger picture.
A lot of the schools that I've worked with actually have varied file systems where different sort of events get filed into their computer systems, and then they have sort of gatekeepers, so only a certain amount of people are allowed to see certain information, right? So you're only dealing with maybe like a quarter of the story and the narrative on that person, so that also will prevent you from taking any kind of preventative steps, because you aren't seeing the other 3 incidents that you don't have access to. And so working with schools to try and figure out, with doing the FERPA and the HIPAA laws and being cognizant of all of that, and keeping that in the back of our minds, but also making sure that there is trying to develop a culture of prevention in the school, where it can be as small as the classroom and it can be as large as the whole district, but really trying to get people to be far more proactive in their approach towards looking not just at safety, but just in general community health, kind of, just for the well-being of your staff and the well-being of the students and everything else, and just trying to make that that feeling of everybody is valued, and if you have a problem, we're going to take care of it, kind of thing.
Okay.
I had a question. So is most of it more with your solutions? Are we being more proactive or reactive? Do you see schools and communities in that regard?
I see most schools wanting to be proactive, but the systems that are sort of in place have kind of like hamstrung them to be reactive.
Sure. That's what I was wondering. I figured that was the answer, but I figured I'd ask just in case, you know?
Well, I think part of it is also you're dealing with human beings in the security field, and you're trying to not manipulate is probably the wrong word, but you're trying to influence behaviors in a certain way, right? Understanding human beings are not linear, right? We do a lot of our decision making on it that we're irrational. We don't follow like natural courses of facts, and things like that don't usually influence us as much as just sort of feelings and things that we really can't explain. And so when we try to create these environments in the school and things like that, we have to kind of understand that linear path and what seems very logical might have sort of a blowback effect where we're not actually getting the result that we're hoping to get. And that's not to say that, you know, cameras aren't valuable or metal detectors aren't valuable or anything like that, but it's not. I think people have this idea that it's sort of the panacea. Like, it's very logical. Like, all right, if people are bringing knives or weapons to school, let's set up a metal detector and we can get it. Rather than asking the question, like, why are they bringing knives and weapons to school? Right? And try to solve that. Try to solve that problem.
And, you know, and just to say from personal experience, when I started teaching in New York City, and every student had to go through the metal detectors coming in. So you think about that, like, reactive thing but there was so much more that went into just the process that everyone had to go through to get into school that day, created a whole bunch of other situations that escalated things within the building that I think had to do with such confrontation at the moment of access to a place that supposedly should be a safe space, just created a real different type of environment.
Absolutely correct. And that's, you know, you see, I have a couple of different stories that I use in sort of my awareness trainings, but one of the stories that I talk about is I went into a liquor store one time, and as I was approaching the liquor store, I could see the outside cameras. There was a very heavy metal door. An alarm goes off when you open the door. You go right through the metal detector. There's a security guard right there at the metal detector who's armed. He wands you down.
Everywhere he wands you.
You go into the store, and it's got these really harsh, bright, fluorescent lights everywhere. You got CCTV TVs everywhere, and the whole place, it was just like an L-shaped. And there was like a sort of like a shelf kind of thing that they were behind, and from ceiling to the shelf was all bulletproof glass. And you do your transactions through a drawer.
That's like the old banking windows.
And you would think, okay, well, with all that stuff, I'm in the safest place I could ever be. But that's not the narrative that happens in your head.
Right.
The narrative that goes in it is what's going on here, that they need all this.
Yeah.
Right.
And you just get whatever, like, you're not going to sit there and ask, hey, do you have like some of that Pacific Northwest, Pinot Noir? Like, you just get whatever the first thing you see.
Right. I'm not here to stay and shop.
Just leave.
We're not window shopping here.
She's like, why did you get the 40? It's just my wife, when I returned home, I was like, it was the first thing I saw.
I wanted to get out.
I wanted to get wine for tonight, but
scanning for the exits. Time to go.
I think that there is that human element to it that often gets either shoved to the background or just is not considered. And we try to take the sort of like the very logical or the easier steps without really delving into sort of like the humanistic reasons why these things are sort of happening, and then what can we do to sort of prevent that, or at least create something where we can sort of absorb that so that it doesn't escalate.
That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I'm getting from this too is that the training is very important, particularly for the staff, because there's almost like a false sense of security when it comes to education. Because one, you may or may not have metal detectors when you walk in. You at least have a visitor management system when you walk through the door. You have security cameras now. A lot of school districts have SROs and SSOs. So unfortunately, a lot of the teachers go, hey, they got it covered.
Right.
And what you're probably seeing, and what I can assume is, there's elements that are missing until something actually happens, and then they go, oh, wait a second. Because it's difficult for teachers this day and age. We're more than just educators. We are parents to students. We are counselors to students. We are leaders to those parents. How do you find that leadership or that training piece comes in to help those teachers, those other educators, be part of the entire process?
Well, that's the most important part. That responsibility shift is almost just a natural human reaction. When we have an expert in the room, it's his problem, right?
Yeah.
Or it's her problem, right? I don't have to then, and you see reporting in schools that have very sort of technical expertise in security, reporting actually goes down. And I've talked to a lot of SROs, and their approach to things might not be, their narrative of why they're there, right, might not match up with the students' narrative of why they're there, right? A lot of SROs want to be what we call sort of like that soft power. They want to be like an extra counselor sort of on the ground. They want students to come up to them with their problems and be that first line of prevention. But that's not the narrative that the kids have.
Right.
The kids think of them as hard power. They're there in case something really bad happens.
Right.
They're not a counselor. They're just like a security guard.
They see them as like law enforcement.
Right.
That's the end result, not the beginning problem.
Right. And I think teachers also do it as well, where if there's a student that has like an issue or something like that, well, it's if the school counselor is aware of that student, well, then it's her problem or his problem, and so a lot of the training is trying to figure out, okay, how do you share information? And one of the things that we began to do was a lot of schools have sort of mandated behavioral threat assessment teams that are mandated by the state. Okay, we started changing the name of that team to just a care team.
Interesting.
Because, as I mentioned earlier, those one-off incidences, sort of like if a student's parents are getting divorced or something like that, which is a risk factor. It's not indicative of anything predictive in any way, but you're not going to send that report that this individual's parents got separated to a threat assessment team. Right? You're more likely to send it to a care team, and in the culture of prevention that you establish, that care team will then appropriately go to that student and see if there's anything that they can do for them. Because by calling it a threat assessment team, you are actually pigeonholing to the most highest degree of issues to go to it, and then you try to thread the needle of response to make sure that nothing happens, and you get everybody all riled up, and
getting to that reactive point.
Yeah, and placing labels too now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Robert, this has been great. I know you probably have other ones. We got our next interviewee is here as well. So if anybody needs to reach you, it's just tvtpsolutions.com. They can reach out.
There's a contact page right on the website, and we'll work. We do pretty much bespoke services, so I'm happy to talk and figure out what you've got going on in the school, what you need, and we'll tailor our services to whatever you need.
That's great. Well, thank you again for joining the show. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right. Be good. All right. We're here at Deeper Learning NY, back on it with our rapid fire interviews. Now we have Jill Berardi from Ulster Bosies, and we have Atash, is it Parikh? Parikh from Inkwire.co. And just to talk a little bit about, things, I wanted to talk and just kind of dive right in about Inkwire's mission, which I saw was to make real-world learning accessible to every student. So, in a nutshell, really talk about project-based learning, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
So, when we think about that, and I thought it was very interesting how you said generative AI, ChatGPT have really shaken up the world. How does Inkwire help the field of education in getting students and districts to really adopt project-based learning as part of their routine, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, we know that project-based learning works. It's effective. Many educators have been doing it for a long time, but we also know how much work it takes, how time intensive it is. And so we see generative AI as an opportunity to really ease the burden of the planning, the design, and a lot of the work that goes into designing great projects.
That's great, and I saw that you really have them rethink the whole learning experience for these kids. Do you see with what you guys are doing at EDventUre, is it across the spectrum K-12? Do you see more pockets of certain age groups using more of the project-based learning, or what are you guys seeing?
We see usage across the board, across disciplines, across grade levels, and I think that's one of the things we're most excited about, is to bring deeper project-based learning into all spaces and into interdisciplinary spaces. So actually having folks across disciplines work with each other to design projects.
That's great. So Jill, I see you brought a book.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about, what is it? I'm reading it upside down. So The Power of Us, a celebration of shared learning, right? And then it's got a wheel, a color wheel, family, community, the whole learner, and a bunch of different things. I'm not going to read the whole thing as well. And this is from the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning Group. Are you the main author of it?
Yeah, I'm the assistant superintendent for the design and learning, and we have 3 centers for special education students.
Okay.
And so we also have regular ed inclusion, but these are all of our stakeholder groups. So our teachers, TAs, aides, OT, PT, speech, nurses. It's unique. It's not just teachers teaching kids.
Right. That's great.
So one of the things I'm intrigued looking at you building the community with these learners here, and how you guys are together talking with project-based learning, and then using AI to go forward. So one of the things that I think I'd like to talk about is how that this educational technology, the rise of AI and its capabilities, and how that's helping students themselves really be able to personalize their own learning environments and provide opportunities in really in the least restrictive way.
Yeah. So I'll just speak a little bit on. So our kids have units. So the teachers plan units, and the reality of our children, we have so many goals. They come to our schools because they did not fit into the traditional paradigm of education. So what happens is we get our children, they have like 30, 40, 50 goals. Mm-hmm. They come into school and they may have a crisis. So a pit crew or crisis worker comes to them. Mm. They may have to leave immediately to go to speech. They come in, maybe do a little ELA, go outside a little, then they go to PT, and so on. So we had to figure out a way, and I'll get to why this is amazing having AI involved. We had to find a way, how do you get your stakeholder groups together, the experts, and really design PBL projects to have all of the experts, whole brain, whole child, mm-hmm. OT, fine motor, right. PT, large motor, and really design with their passion in mind, but also how they move, their neurodiversity, all of that. So what we did was we built lessons and units, and then we infused the units throughout the month with all of their goals. So if I have 8 kids in one classroom, what I'm doing now is I've designed for all children with their passion, what their interests, what their needs, their goals, standard skills. But then what's unique is we're now taking all of the goals in the classroom and we're infusing them. So they're practicing them in the classroom and being pulled out. So what's happening is when I met Atash and EDventUre, it was amazing because it's like planning on steroids. You have to do the deep work first. You can't just say, let's get in there, because you've done it all. With him, he came and spent a full day with us for the whole brain, whole child. We set the whole day up. Like, if you were there, neurodiverse, you're there, we're there. He was able to walk through what it does it look like to really be in a whole brain, whole child. It's not just words. We really worked with OT-PT speech to build this day. And so he was able to understand, and he did that with us. Not all partners will do that.
Sure.
So he was there, we processed, we reflected, then his tools are amazing, so we were able to authentically build something that made sense. I don't want to go in with my teachers and be like, here's AI, let's do this.
Right.
Yeah.
We worked hard with this. And so their expertise is amazing, and they work hard for their profession. So he was able to allow us to say, okay, let's do this, this, and this, and we're playing with it, and it's going to be amazing. We did our first launch end of year. We had 2 cycles throughout the year, and then we launched. This year we're going to be doing them, the lessons through his work and our work together.
So you got the foundation built, and then is it going to be monthly this year, or?
We'll have 2. One will be in the fall, one will be in in the spring, but they're a month long.
Oh, okay.
It's a month of planning, and depending on where you are, elementary, and they teach other things. This is an experience.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. I'll edit this down, but you guys got to go at what time? 8:45, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So we're just gonna wrap up, right? All right. So thank you both for joining us. Where's the book available?
So this is the book, the curated book at the end of the year, all the projects. We
Oh,
did.
okay. I got
Okay.
you.
Part of this, it's just.
Oh, that looks great.
It's a beautiful book. 300 people were involved in these OTPT speech. They chose one part that they were involved
Got
in
it.
the unit, and then we created the book. It's not for sale. I just am showing it.
Yeah,
And
okay.
we'll just share it with everybody because at the end of the day, the AI tool allowed us to do certain things, but the foundation is key. You have to have a framework.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes it that much more beautiful.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both.
Thank you both.
And so, inquire.co, right? If anybody wants to reach out, get some help with project-based learning, and make sure it's accessible to every student, they can reach out to you. Attached address right on the website, right? Best contact.
Absolutely, yeah. They can reach out on the website and use our contact form. And if they want to connect with me, if they want to connect with Dr. Berardi, they can use that contact form, and we'll make sure that connection happens.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining
you.
us today.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, we're going to wrap up. That's the rapid fire interview sessions for this morning. Dan, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that a lot of interesting conversations. It was interesting to talk about the proactive school safety and then going into the different people that are featured here. So definitely some great insights to move forward with.
Yeah, Art, you have any other thoughts about it?
No, I agree. The diversity of thought content here is quite interesting, and it makes me look forward to next year's conference already.
Which we know is already in the works, right? So we'll get more details on that as they come out and the partnerships that are. Thanks for listening. As always, leave a positive review on all the platforms wherever you get your podcast from. Tech Hard, Work Smart, Live at Adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at A Nicola Tech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.